The film opens in a stadium field, where a father is seen comforting his son during practice because he's confessed to his childhood trauma, which haunts him to this day. After the practice, the father takes out useless stuff from his car trunk and goes alone to throw it away in a rental shed. The kid waits for his father out on the road, but his father never returns. When he goes to check up on his father, he watches him fallen on the ground with paralysis and foaming from the mouth. Before he can react, a horrifying entity spawns behind the boy and crushes his bones to fit his body inside his bag. The scenes cut to our lead, Patrick, moving back to his hometown with his wife, Karina, and a son named Jake. After settling down and unpacking, Karina approaches Patrick and notices that he's worn off due to some reason. Later, she invites her sister, Anna, and Patrick's brother, Liam, with his wife. Patrick complains about hearing noises at night, but Liam blames the possums for the commotion. Now, Patrick shows Liam his new invention, which can help cut down tall tree branches without putting in any effort, given that Liam handles his father's timber business. He asks Liam to provide investment in his invention's production, but Liam politely reminds him he has loans to pay first. Meanwhile, Karina vents out with Anna about how Patrick failed to find investors for his inventions and got himself drowned in loans, due to which he's returned to work with Liam on the family business. The same night, Patrick goes to throw out trash, where he hears the noises coming from the backyard bushes again. This time, he finds an angry possum hissing at him, so he returns to the kitchen and does the dishes. The next day, Patrick joins Liam at their workplace, where he again shares his paranoia. Liam states that he knows why he thinks this way, which takes us to a flashback of the brothers' childhood. We see young Patrick and Liam discovering a mine opening, which is notorious for being haunted. Patrick crosses the creek and starts tearing down a small tree in the entrance. Liam gets worried and asks him to return, but Patrick doesn't. Suddenly, he feels someone cutting off his hair from behind, prompting him to fall to the ground and drop his cap and carved owl. Currently, Patrick is seen passing time at work, while the frustrated Karina momentarily leaves Jake in the backyard to work online, who gets lured into the woods by a puppet. Not long after Jake follows it, Karina realizes his disappearance and runs after him. Jake wanders in the woods all by himself and follows the puppet. Thankfully, Karina hears his flute and finds him sitting by an old tree. She picks him up and decides to leave, but momentarily stops when she hears strange noises coming from within the trunk. Jake comes home by evening and helps put Jake to sleep. He then sits with Karina on the porch to catch up. At night, he stresses over overdue loans and smacks his hand on the table, which breaks his childhood carving knife he always keeps with him. Simultaneously, he witnesses Jake talking to someone on the baby monitor, so he walks up to his room to check up on him. Jake waves at something on the window, so Patrick puts him to sleep and checks the windows personally, where he's startled by an object thrown towards the windows from outside. He locks the windows and walks out of there. Suddenly the power goes out, and he starts hearing the same noises again. He walks downstairs and finds the kitchen window open, so he closes it immediately. Karina wakes up to Patrick holding a bat and peeping out from the window, complaining that he's hearing the sound of someone closing and opening a Ziploc bag to annoy him. He ends up running outside to assert dominance when the noise gets louder. The scenes cut to the next morning, where they've called the cops. The sheriff thinks there's no sign of forced entry up until an officer calls him and Patrick upstairs and shows them miniature carvings outside Jake's windows. Patrick confirms that these are his carvings from childhood. Later that night, Patrick finds his carved owl in the trash that he dropped in the mine the day he was attacked. He confronts Karina about it, but she states that she's never seen it before. Speaking of Patrick's carvings, she hands him the flute he carved for Jake and asks him to throw it away since she finds it noisy and annoying when Jake plays it all the time. When Patrick goes to give Jake a bath, he keeps insisting on getting his flute back, so Patrick decides to let him have it without Karina finding out. He goes down in the basement to grab it but finds it gone. Meanwhile, the same entity that attacked Patrick in the mine shows up outside the bathroom window and uses his powers to shut the bathroom door. Patrick hears it and immediately runs upstairs to check up on him. The entity closes the window and disappears the second Patrick steps in and turns the lights on. Patrick goes out and picks trash to find the flute, but it's nowhere to be found. That night, the parents bring Jake into their room for protection. Patrick's flashback continues, in which his father confronts him about finding out from Liam about their little trip to the mine. In the present, Patrick wakes up from the noises in the middle of the night and goes outside. He walks inside his garage, where he spots a strange puppet wearing his pea cap that he lost in the mine the day he got attacked. He freaks out and rushes back to the house but finds the main door locked from inside. He crawls halfway through from a pet door to open the lock, but ends up witnessing the entity hanging from the ceiling with a bag over its head and playing Jake's flute. He loses his calm and breaks the window to barge in. He shouts and wakes up Karina to protect Jake. She becomes scared, but Patrick locks her in their bedroom with Jake and goes to confront the bagman, but he disappears. The next day, they call the sheriff once again, who concludes that there are signs of intrusion but nothing stolen. Besides that, their power keeps cutting off, but the power company has confirmed to the sheriff that the fault is not from their side. Patrick takes his cap and shares his concerns with Liam, but he thinks Patrick's childhood trauma is returning and that he should see his psychiatrist Barbara, who helped him heal back then. Up next, Karina takes Jake to the park, where she loses track of time while working and not realizing everyone has left the park. Jake returns with folded sketches someone has given him. When Karina opens them, one sketch is of little Patrick cutting down the tree outside the mine, and the second sketch is of someone seeing Jake and Karina from inside the slide. Karina runs to get Jake out of the slide and spots the bagman opening his bag to trap Jake in it. As she fails to save Jake, Patrick wakes up sweating and realizing it was a nightmare. He checks up on Jake from the monitor and finds him sleeping peacefully. He takes Karina and Jake to Barbara's office, where Patrick has another flashback of his father dragging him near the mine and telling him the tale of the bagman, promising that the story is passed down by his ancestors, which tells that the bagman hunts children at night and puts them in a bag. Little Patrick thinks he's trying to scare him, but his father shakes him down and uses gruesome words to describe what the bagman will do to kids like him, which scares Patrick for life. Currently, Barbara shows Karina the old files of Patrick's case. Despite believing in the mythical tales of the bagman, Barbara declares that the bagman in Patrick's life is a projection from his childhood that has returned because of the problems he's facing. Karina knows she's underestimating the situation and making Patrick look stupid. In the end, Barbara suggests they get out of the house for a change of environment. Anna helps them babysit against their will and sends them elsewhere to relax. Patrick again tells her about the mine incident, which Karina believes is real. He also speaks of another time, which takes us to another flashback of Patrick's childhood. His father comforts him by telling him that every kid has an attachment to one materialistic object, which is the bagman's biggest weakness, so as long as they keep their favorite objects with them, the bagman can cause them no harm. It explains that Patrick's sentimental object was his carving knife, which had been protecting him from the bagman all along. But ever since the day he broke it, he unleashed the demon on him. Karina realizes that Jake's sentimental attachment is with his flute, so they must find it to keep him safe. On the other hand, Anna is seen on a call after putting Jake to sleep. She detects something odd in the baby monitor and takes a peek outside from the front door's peephole. She becomes frightened to see the bagman outside. He uses his powers to unlock the door, so Anna runs to Jake's room. The power blacks out, creating panic. Anna tries hiding from the bagman, but he finds her and attacks her. As he goes near Jake, the scenes cut to Patrick and Karina rushing back to see the injured Anna being taken care of by the police. The police hand them Jake back safe and sound. The sheriff shows Patrick the footage, which was corrupted and couldn't capture the bagman. The sheriff speaks that the second the cameras went down, he started checking up on the rooms, which might have scared the bagman away. He suggests Patrick return to his house where the cops will guard them. That night, Patrick spots the bagman in Jake's monitor, so he rushes to his room and finds his brother paralyzed and foaming up. The bagman shows him Jake in his bag and runs away, so Patrick goes after him without fearing for his life. He sees the cops paralyzed too. He ends up going after the bagman in his lair, where he's showcased his victim's sentimental objects. When Patrick opens his bag, he finds a puppet inside it instead of Jake, who's safely sleeping at home. Patrick is attacked and paralyzed by the bagman, during which he realizes through flashbacks that he practically invited the bagman into his life after breaking his carving knife and his father's advice to fight the demon. Bagman now plays Jake's flute, hinting that he's not safe either. The urge to save his son gives him the strength to rise again and walk back to save Jake. But the bagman chokes the life out of him. Karina knows his story, so she brings the cops outside the mine. But by that time, the bagman breaks Patrick's bones and fits him in his bag. The cops fail to find Patrick and declare him missing, but thankfully, Karina finds Jake's flute. With her husband disappeared, she starts believing the bagman story deeply and gives the flute back to Jake despite hating it because his protection comes first. As she drives her son away from that town, the film ends.